Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday Wise Leader. I am truly honored to be sitting here with Laurie Cooke, who is the CEO of the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association and truly a pioneer when it comes to gender parity. She is just doing amazing work, and I'm thrilled to have her here. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and have a conversation with you.
Yeah. I would love to know a little bit about, how you started as a leader. What is like some of your earliest memories of stepping into your leadership?
Wow. I was the youngest of three girls, and I think that um, you're sort of forced to make your space, in the family unit. And I was always into sports, and at that point in the game, to really play sports, a lot of the time you were playing with boys, and I think that shaped my early years, and you just sort of were forced to be a leader, to have a space, to be part of what was going on. And I always wanted to be where things were going on, to be in the center of things. And I think that shaped it from very early on. So those are like super early memories of leadership, but you don't know if that's what it means at the time, do you?
Right. That is such a good point, Lori. In that first chapter where I talk about claiming your leadership, I talk about how most women are already leading, but they're not necessarily giving themselves that title, right? When I ask groups of women, sometimes they won't even raise their hands. And then I find out, they're business owners, they're moms, they're serving on their church boards or active in the community. And it's that mindset switch, right? To really like claim that leadership.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, that is there is a discomfort that I find tends to be more on the female versus male side to be a leader. A leader seems to be something that has to be validated. Somebody has to say, you are a leader now, versus you taking leadership roles in whatever you are doing at whatever level of your career, whatever level within an organization, family unit, we all can be leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you said right there about whatever level in your career, because I believe you kind of have to decide you're at a higher level before you get there, right? It's like when you want to be CEO or president or director, whatever level is right for you, you have to kind of make up your mind and own that even before someone bestows that title on you.
And feel comfortable with it, right? There's nothing wrong with ambition, and ambition is what makes us as a human race move forwards, and wanting to always be better, for ourselves, for our family, for our team, for our company. And we had a Woman of the Year. I'll name two WODIs because they're just so impactful to me as a leader. Kathy Sohn was one of our Women of the Year, WODI for short. And she talked about whenever you move into a new role, and she had general numbers, but just for easy remembering, like 30% of your new role has got to be new to you. If you move into a role you already know how to do, it really is not a good idea for your career and for you personally, right? To be enthused and excited about always being a continual learner. So if you are moving into a role where a whole portion of it you don't know how to do, to your point, you already have to think of yourself as something higher and then step into it. And the other WODI is Carolyn Buckluse, who talks about having a 10-year plan. And it's fascinating because that's a sort of a contentious topic on whether you should or should not plan out your journey. But her theory holds water from the perspective that if you do have targets on where you want to be, even if you make them more general, like I want to be in a place where I'm advocating for children, or you map it to your North Star, then when things come up, you're much more aware of them and can go, that could help me in my step, versus totally stepping back to serendipity and hoping the world's forces put some wonderful things in your path.
Right, right. It's something I work with my clients on, especially those executives that are in transition, to really get clear about what they want next, instead of just sort of swaying with where the market wants to lead them or what they think is out there, because you won't spot that opportunity and they won't spot you if you don't have that clarity.
That is a really important point. And I do speak with a number of folks who either are not in roles or are looking to change roles, and asking my advice. And one of the things that is pretty consistent is the person is very flexible, and they're like, well, I could do this and I could do that. And I said, well, if you were talking to me and I was looking at you as a candidate, I'm not going to see you as the perfect match because I don't know what you are. You're like everything. And so you could be any of those things to lots of different people. I want to know that you are the right one, you're the right match for me, and you really want this job, and so it's a trying to make sure you're open and flexible. And I think there's some socialization that also happens for women at very young ages, that we are socialized to be, pleasers, the good girl theory, all of those pieces. So when we have an opportunity where things open up to us, we're like, well, I could be this, I could be that. And you do have to get a bit tighter in what you want to do, because you want to be really fulfilled in what you do, as well as the person you're working for.
Yeah. And I think sometimes women are afraid to ask for exactly what they want. It's a piece of that people pleasing. It's a piece of that social conditioning, even a piece of that, like being afraid to truly unleash your ambition, and really ask for that big dream. And then, like you said, it becomes wishy-washy, really.
Right. And that is not a good trait for anyone. Whoever they are, who wants to hire a wishy-washy person, right? Who wants to be part of that? You want someone who is clear, because that's what makes people feel comfortable about following a leader. The leader is clear, they set a vision, and they're moving forward, and you're like, I want to be part of that team.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's part of our job as leaders, is enrolling people in our vision, right? And getting them to want to follow that lead. And, people work best for you because they're emotionally tied to that vision.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah. Tell me how you got into gender parity and all the work that you're doing there.
Story. How much time do you have? So when I started out my career, I was on the medical side of the house. I started out in microbiology and then clinical pharmacy, and then moved into developing antibiotics, therapeutics for some pretty serious diseases. And I had an opportunity with a change my husband was making in his career to move, and I loved my job. I really loved my job, but it was just too far to travel. And back then we weren't in remote working. We're all now expert at, and so I thought, okay, this could be an opportunity for a change, and I moved into a nonprofit. And with each role that I have taken, it's always a larger and larger impact, from helping diagnose a patient with what their disease is, to helping lots of patients in a hospital, to helping people with an entire therapeutic area, to helping a profession. And the opportunity at the HBA came up because they were looking for someone who understood for-profit and nonprofit, And what I had seen in my career, not realizing it at the time, is women were not having the same experience that men were having. And the role that I had, I worked globally for many of those roles. I could see it was a different experience across companies, across countries, across even socioeconomic levels. And I saw the benefit when you did have a diverse team, when you did have diversity in a company. And I thought this could benefit not only our industry, right? It can help all women and all the different levels. They say when you invest in women, that for a country is when they really move forward in their ability, as a country, GDP, et cetera. So I thought this is the time I can apply a lot of things that I've learned to this cause, which I deeply care about. And then I didn't realize perhaps how bad it was until you start getting into the data. And we didn't even have data in the first years. We just knew this was the right thing to do. And it was more of that heart kind of topic. And then we started to get the data, and then we had the business case for why companies should do it. And I think now we've even got a broader perspective on just equity. We really have got to look at the equity of the people that are in our workforce, and are we being fair and equitable, not just equal, or just parity, but the equity piece. So it keeps me very passionate about what I do, and I enjoy to see the needle move. So.
Yeah, it is wonderful to see the change that is happening around us. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is to help women propel forward. And while a lot of us external to us has to change, there is also the work that we have to do of standing up and really, like I say in the book, claiming our leadership and finding our voice and doing our part. As you were talking about the Women of the Year, and about that 30%, right, that you should still be challenged in the next role. But we have women who are waiting, till they see that they meet 100% of what you're looking for before they even apply. And then the men are, at 60%, they're applying, and then they're getting the roles. And I think that's really important information for women to have, to keep telling them, like, throw your hat in the ring. You don't have to know it all from day one. This should be a growth opportunity for you too. And
yeah, I agree with that. That was actually a very small study. I believe it was at Hewlett Packard that found they were seeing differences, and so they started to study it. And now it seems to be this really broad piece, but I think it's reflective, and so we can learn a lot from it. And one of the things that I've come to learn is us as humans are very comfortable when we see things happen multiple times, because it's a pattern. We work very much, our brains work on patterns. And so we're comfortable that men can be assessed and valued on potential, because we've seen many men move into roles, and generally speaking, they're successful. So you see lots of success stories. And for women, there aren't that many women that are moving into these these roles. And might I say, what we're seeing in the US system now, regardless of your politics, having a woman move into a vice presidential role, that's like a big thing. Or a woman moving into a CEO role for a pharma company, that's a big thing. So it puts risk. So what happens is we want to move to, well, give me confidence, prove that person can do it. And we never ask that about a male candidate. Prove he can do it. So it's more of a sort of a human nature numbers game. And after a while, once we have those numbers, we won't have that anymore. But we just have to keep seeing women moving in those roles, doing the job. And then you start to change the gender language you use as well. When we thought nurse, we thought female. And many of the things that we refer to, it's a male term because it's only been men. And now we start to see, once you get enough women doing something, the gender term changes, so it's male or female, right? Like wait staff or flight attendant or things like that. The gender term comes out of it. So I would encourage women to know that you don't have to have all the boxes ticked. What you do need to have is you need to have confidence. You need to know you can do it. And the way you do it is because you have a team, right? Whether that team is somebody that works for you, you have a team of people that you can go to. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, in this, can you help me? And that's how you do it. You surround yourself with great people who keep you buoyed up and help you if you don't know how to do something. And hello, call, Dr. Google. If you have to figure out anything, you can go online and figure a lot of things out. So it's just to recognize other people aren't putting such a harsh barrier on themselves about moving ahead.
Yeah. And, in the book, I call it assembling your tribe, right? We all need supports, and we need to have those people, like you said, buoying us and lifting us up. And some other brilliant things that you mentioned, our brain is a pattern recognition machine. So when women aren't getting ahead, it's not necessarily a conscious choice of we don't want that woman in that role, but that subconscious that's getting triggered of I haven't seen that proven out yet, so I have more confidence in this candidate. And I think that one of the things we can do to move forward with diversity, equity, inclusion across everything, race, gender, is doing that internal work, checking our biases, looking at what is subconsciously happening, but also, not vilifying people, giving people the benefit of the doubt that we're looking for a real paradigm shift, and that doesn't happen overnight, and it starts with education.
It does. And there are some relatively simple things we can do. So for instance, if you are in a meeting and you're trying to make a decision about someone you want to hire or promote, or a stretch opportunity or what have you, you can have someone that plays a role that just sits in the meeting with you and listens to the word choices you're using, how we're analyzing the candidates. Are we making assumptions like, oh, she just had a baby, this is obviously, that would be too much, why don't we put her for the next opportunity? Things like that someone checks us on it. So not only do we have unconscious bias training and we're made aware, after that, it's a continual check that we have to do as individuals, that we are not applying bias, which is called unconscious bias for a reason.
Right.
It's unconscious. So you have to do whatever you can to help it be conscious, because then you can take action. So something like that, and you do just circulate that. I'll be in your meeting and do that observer check, and you be in my meeting, and that can make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea, because I see the biggest problem with DEI programs is that there's not the follow through, right? So there's this piece of education, and we may label terms and spend a day in a workshop, but it's sort of like checking that box off and then moving on and doing business as usual. And implementing something like that, again, where you have that observer who can really reflect back. I think that's how we're going to make these paradigm shifts.
Yeah, agreed. And that when we were just speaking a little bit earlier about women perhaps not throwing their hat in the ring at the same rate or pace that their male colleague would, there's one of the opportunities we have to help our male colleagues to appreciate the life journey that a woman may be on is a bit different than a man, or at certain points. And so if a male manager understands that when an opportunity comes up and they're seeing, all the men put their hands up and the female team members aren't, it may not be because they don't want the role. It may be because of all other things, so that perhaps the manager can speak about the opportunity in a way, I think you're really qualified for this. Are you considering it? And not assuming they don't want it because they haven't put their hat in. So just simple things like that in that sort of education for all of us, how we can make sure, and it may not be male, female, it may be some folks are not as perhaps assertive as others are, and you have to nurture that. So as a manager, you have to be flexible and meet your people where you need to.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, what you're talking about is building those ally relationships in the office, so that people are kind of checking in and not making assumptions, right? Because I think that happens a lot. Like you said, it's not necessarily that they don't want the role. Maybe they haven't thought of themselves in that role. And, by you coming to them and saying, I think you're a good fit.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And I think it's also that piece of mentorship, right? Where you're like, hey, you could do this, you could do this, right?
Right. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, looking at, well, why can't you do this? Why not you, and why this other person? And investigating it sort of at different angles. So not only why you can do it, but what's standing in your way. And then when you start to really look at what's standing in your way, you realize those things are not actually insurmountable. And we might even be putting them up as potential barriers for us. So we don't get put in a place where it is pretty stressful. You will be tested and you might not make it. And I don't know about you, but how many people love to be told you didn't make it, right? So it's easier if you sit back, but if you turn things around and you think about, but what if, not what if not, it sometimes just turning all of those things around and having the conversation again helps you to see a different picture start to arise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really coaching. It's asking those powerful questions, right? And, what if that, and helping people dismantle the stories that they tell themselves, right? That we believe a seed is planted at a young age or something, and we start telling this story, and we need to challenge those stories and ask ourselves, like, is that still true?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting you say about planting seeds. For whatever reason, I had in my head that I was going to be an engineer because my dad was an engineer, and loved my dad, wanted to be like him, and so that was what I was going to do. And so my first year, I did engineering, and almost all men in the class. And I was doing well in physics and all of these pieces, but when I got to the spatial recognition piece, where they show you different shapes and which one is the other one, and I would be like tortured in my head trying to figure out which, and the guys would like get it really quickly. And my interpretation of that is they are better than me. And so this isn't my field, my strong field. And so I actually moved into microbiology. But what was so interesting later on, when you learn about the human brain, when we are fetuses, it is actually a female brain. And it's only a certain point when testosterone starts to, when it is a male child, the testosterone phase and things start to change. One of the things that happens is when men process those visual pieces, they're processing it in one area of the brain. And women send it across the corpus callosum, which is more sophisticated for women, and it goes to the other part of the brain. So we still get the right answer. It just takes longer. So if I had realized I just was doing it differently, and I still could have gotten the right answer. Who cares whether it was, a microsecond and 3 seconds? And it would have, I think, made a difference. But we know so much more now. And to your point, the coaching, the mentoring, the sponsoring, we could help so many other people perhaps see opportunities that they may have available to them that they might not even see themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think when we foster those opportunities, I really believe that we all win as we get people, fulfilling their purpose, fulfilling their passion, and get them into the right roles. They're going to thrive. And, as a society, we're going to advance, we're going to innovate, we're going to create. And, that's a big piece of why I do what I do. I say that my mission is to create 1 million conscious leaders, because when
Wow.
we have equity, we have global consciousness, we have, people doing the right things and being in the right places.
I want to be on your bus.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say your particular mission is, Laurie?
Well, I truly believe in service-related leadership. So some people call it servant leadership, and you can call it, lots of different things. So let's call it service-based leadership. It's like always
servant myself.
Yeah. So to me, the mission is, at the largest, is to leave the world a better place than you found it. And I've tried to do that throughout my career, and whatever it was that I worked on. I try and do it in my personal life, wherever I possibly can. But I get such joy out of having someone see something in a different way. So whether maybe I should have been a teacher, but it's that feeling of when someone's eyes light up, and when all of a sudden you give feedback to them, you really lit up and became passionate when you were talking about X. Sometimes people just, they don't see it, or there's a perhaps gender diversity, gender parity. They don't see, what's the big deal? If they're good for the job, they'll get the job, and you help people to see some things, and then you go, I didn't know that. It's just such a wonderful thing. So it's not I know more than you. It's simply relating to people at a level that perhaps we don't spend the time doing, or should do. That's my theory.
Yeah. And to your point, I don't think it's not knowing more than the other person, but it's having a different perspective and helping people to see that alternate perspective, and also, just pulling out the best in them, right? Which is always thrilling when you get to see that, and you get to see people light up and their energy lift. It's so rewarding.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you say your journey relates to your motherhood? I know that, like me, you also have a very strong daughter who also believes in gender parity and is doing great things in the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I have a daughter and a son, and they're both amazing human beings. And what I did try to do, good or bad, because we don't know, it's always an experiment, is for my daughter, I tried very hard to help her to have a voice early on, that her voice was very important. And really to not take things personally, and speak up for others, not just yourself, and just a lot of the things that tend to be a little bit more masculine traits, versus fit in, be nice, be polite, you know, all of the things. And of course, she is a wonderfully nice, polite person, but she speaks up and she's not afraid to speak up. And so I'm incredibly proud of her. And for my son, I tried the sort of opposite piece, which is to try and look at things from a different perspective. Are they having, is this the same as you? So bringing up the empathy piece, which now in the case of COVID, and you hear conversations, what is the most important skill a leader can have? And empathy has gone from, oh, that's a female skill, you know, and not valued, to it's the number one skill. And he has that. He has that in spades. He is an incredibly intelligent, resourceful person who thinks about the team and other people. So I feel one of the reasons they are so successful is because they had that blend of the sort of feminine masculine continuum. It doesn't mean male or female. It's about there are wonderful things across that spectrum, and to be more aware of it and hopefully pick up some of those skills that you can put in your toolkit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just for our daughters, but it's for our sons too. Absolutely. And I have 2 daughters, and they've been very active in social justice and politics. And it's wonderful to see. And I know that the efforts that I make in my career and leaving a legacy, I hope, lead the way for them.
So true. About leaving the world a better place than how you found it. We do have to stand up for what's right, and stand up for others. And so that when we see that in our younger people, it does give you hope that, our planet is going to survive, and we are going to look after each other. And they're so sophisticated now in what they're doing.
Yeah, they have so much more information than we ever did, right at their fingertips.
Yes.
Laurie, do you have any parting words for us and our audience here today?
Oh gosh, I think it is around just joining me in being a Jedi warrior. Right? Jedi is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have a lot of people that are around us that perhaps are not living their full lives, whether they're coming to work and they don't feel they can be their whole selves. I spent a lot of time trying to be like the men that were on my team, thinking that was the model and not realizing that what I was bringing to the table, something they didn't have, and I needed to be more of that. So just being aware of who you are and who your colleagues are, and helping everyone to bring themselves to the table, because your team is going to be so much stronger because of that, and people will want to be around you. So join me in being a Jedi warrior.
Absolutely. Well, I am 100% on your bus, Laurie. And I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us today and engage in this really meaningful conversation. If anyone would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if you want to email me, it's lcook@hbanet.org. Would love to hear from you.
Great. And I will go ahead and put those in the comments as well.
Perfect.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We got to pick one. We just have to pick a card before we go. So this is the Wise Leader Affirmation deck. And well, the one that fell out is I believe in abundance. So that's one. And then we'll have to pick one more, because that one jumped out for us though. So nobody saw that. And the other one is I claim my leadership. So we have these 2 today. For our audience, I'd love for you to think about how you can incorporate that into the rest of your day. And we'll say goodbye for today, and we'll see everyone next week with Colleen McManus from Spartan. Thank you.
Thank you.